Charles Dickens, born 1812. This is an 1843 work. So he's 31 years old. He's been living through the 19th century. And what kinds of things was he experiencing that are going to be important here? One of the big factors we call today the Industrial Revolution. We have the development of multiple kinds of technology. In agriculture, the technologies of production and harvesting. You have then the technologies of shipping and of processing. You have all kinds of factory technologies and machines for developing and producing goods. And this is just changing the face of England. So you have, among many other phenomena that are attached to this, you have everybody moving to the cities because you have rural laborers. They need to move on because their work is now being done by machines. There are fewer of them needed, and you can make more money in the city. So they're moving to the city, and they're filling up vast areas where there weren't people before, which are now slums. Some of them are really just shanty towns, villages that have sprung up overnight where poor people live. Dickens was obsessed with these places. They populate his novels. This means, among other things, that we've got hard times for children. Children, some of them would be without parents. They would be orphans. But then you also have child labor. You have children who are used to working with their families in the country, now going off to work by themselves in the factory. These are 8, 10, 12-year-olds, sometimes even younger than that. There was a report of the Children's Employment Commission that was looking at child labor and presenting to a civilized audience these horrifying spectacles of what small children are being put through in these factories. This is kind of a look under the cover of their bustling, new, exciting culture that was developing. Look where the cost of this is coming down and affecting real lives. Charles Dickens himself, all of those things that I was just speaking about, they touched him personally in interesting and important ways for this book. So Charles Dickens himself was raised lower middle class. They were doing all right, but there were times, a few years in particular, where they lost everything, his family, and fell into deep poverty. There was one year when he was 12. He's the oldest child of his parents. He's 12. His parents are taken off to debtor's prison, an institution they had at the time. They have to live there, and he has to work on his own in a factory and support himself, live by himself, make his own bread. This is a traumatic time by any account. Even though he arises out of that, finishes his education in a way, and goes off and becomes obviously a very successful writer, that time in poverty marked him and filled his heart with this real deep sympathy for the poor. Camden Town, this is one of the places he lived when he was on the poor side with his family as a kid. That's where the Cratchits live. They live in a place where Dickens used to live, actually. A bunch of little connections like this between the Christmas Carol and Dickens's own life. For example, he read that report that I mentioned about child labor. He thought, I've got to write something in response to this. His first thought was, I need to write some kind of tract, a piece of nonfiction exhortation to readers who can afford to help take care of these people, to raise awareness, as we like to say now. And he was initially intended to do that, but after sitting on it for a couple of days, he thought, you know what? No. I've got to write a piece of fiction. I can hit so much harder. I can change hearts and minds so much more powerfully with a piece of fiction. What he actually wrote to a friend of his, he says, if I write the right kind of story, it will come down like a sledgehammer. It will come down with 20 times the force that some mere tract or kind of piece of moral exhortation will. I'm going to kind of bring these situations into the minds and hearts of people.